Welcome back to KUTV Primetime News, and thank you for your valued company. And also let me invite you to get interactive on the social media handles, KUTV_Kenya on Twitter, and the hashtag is KUTV Primetime News. Now to our discussion of the night. Now, members of the National Assembly have been on and are still on a week-long induction process, having attained a role of serving Kenyans as their representatives on the national sphere. However, with the dust only recently coming to settle on the concluded polls, they had to settle as a matter of contentions that have been witnessed, prompting a second look at our honorable members. And with me on this is Ken Babu, a youth policy and governance expert who also doubles up as the chairman of the Peace and Reconciliation Assembly for the Youth. Babu, welcome to KUTV.
Thank you so much.
And just before we actually go into our discussion, perhaps you can tell us what the Peace and Reconciliation Assemblies for the Youth is all about.
Well, thank you so much. We call it PRAY, that is Peace and Reconciliation Assembly for the Youth. This is an assembly that basically brings together young people who are so much interested into political leadership, so that we can forge a movement or we can work together as far as leadership is concerned. But at the back of our mind, we foster peace and ensure that whatever we do, in as much as politics is concerned, is done in a peaceful way, in an organized manner that is dignified and responsible. Yeah.
Commendable to see the youth actually finding a way into the political spheres, and you actually ensuring you try and make a way of this happening. Now to our discussion of the day, we are looking at the members of the National Assembly, or rather our legislators. Within this week, we have been having an induction process at the Safari Park in Nairobi, where members have been coming to rather get a load of what happens in the National House. Now, in your view, as a governance expert, what do you view as the importance of this induction process?
Well, this induction process is a very important process, more so for the first time as MPs and probably those who are coming for the first time into government. You know, it's coming out clear that some of the members of parliament who are elected for the first time do not, to some extent, understand some of their roles or the basic roles that they should be playing. A member of parliament has basically three roles. That is oversight, and we have legislation, and then we have representation, which is one of the key roles of a member of parliament. So the induction process is basically to bring them together so that the newcomers can get to understand what's happening, and then the big boys, or those who have been around, those who have been in the system for the longest time, can also interact with the new babies in the system, so that they get to acclimatize as they progress. Yeah,
I like the way you're calling the new babies in the blog. But anyway, it is quite key. I've actually been able to understand whatever is the reason and importance of MPs getting an induction. But I'm also going to ask you this. Now, the common mwananchi also needs to understand what their MP is going to do. What do you think about the place of civic education, particularly to the members of the public, in understanding everything that goes on, particularly in this National Assembly?
Yeah, I think civic education should be embraced and given a priority as much as leadership is concerned. Because, you know, matters of governance is very broad. And if you walk into our villages today, where the constituencies are in the villages, you'll come to realize that most of the voters or electorates do not understand the basic roles of their MPs. And then people tend to assume or insinuate that an MP is that person who is tasked to dish out CDF, maybe build roads, or maybe build schools, or issue bursaries, which is not true. And I think for us to get the public to understand the roles of members of parliament, senators, and MCS, then we need to have serious civic education on leadership and governance.
And is this being carried out? Do you see, like, is it really happening?
No, it's not happening. And if it's happening, then it's happening at a low rate, which should be at least embraced. Because you'll realize that as it stands right now, we have issues to do with CDF. The court just ruled that the CDF is illegal. This is something that cannot be understood by that mama mboga or that woman in the village. because in the last 10 or 15 years, they've believed that it is the role of MP to issue bursaries. It's the role of MP to do everything that relates to CDF. But in the argument of the court, how the court pronounced itself, the CDF should not be handled by the members of parliament. Why is it? And the reasoning is very, authentic and understandable. The MP has only 3 roles. That is legislation, oversight, and representation. And in these 3 roles, there is nowhere they are advised or instructed to be implementing government projects through CDFs and stuff. So civic education, you need it as many times as possible, and it should be directed down to the ground so that the people get to understand the basic things that should be happening and what the MP should be doing at the parliament level, and what is it that what is it that the MP should do, so that if something happens, this is happening courtesy of national government, this is happening courtesy of MCA, and this is happening courtesy of member of parliament. So we need to have a serious civic education on leadership and governance directed to the ground.
Okay, you've touched on the CDF and the contention that was with it. Now, I'm going to ask you this. Okay. What is your view as a governance expert on the association of the MP with the CDF kitty? Because for the longest time running, the MP's force on the ground traditionally has been viewed by what he has done or she has done with the CDF. Now, it comes to a point where the CDF is now something that is not constitutional. Don't you think, for some reason, in our traditional perspective of our leaders, there will be a loss of maybe force among the MPs, and maybe this is the matter that is causing most of them to be concerned?
At first, we had CDF as a CDF, and then there came some restructuring, and then we had now NGCDF. That is the national government. CDF is basically 2.5% of the national government revenue. This is a way in which the national government implements or carries out projects at the constituency level. An MP, in the past, we've had MPs enjoying and riding over CDF implementation as their track records as far as development is concerned, which is not true. And it should not be that way. It should be the other way. These are national government projects that are being implemented on the ground. But because the people, or there is no enough civic education to make people understand that these are national government projects, the MPs have been taking advantage of the situation. Now, to solve this issue, all we need is to empower people on the ground and carry out a serious civic education. Because going forward, if whatever is in place is to stand, then it means that 2027 we are going to lose almost the entire 290 elected MPs because they will not have anything to hang on. There shall be no CDF for them to hang on. This means that the MPs are being pushed back to their basic roles, which I mentioned earlier, that are only 3. They need to oversight the national government on how the national government is implementing this 2.5% of the national revenue at the constituency level. And this money should now be managed by the CDF constituency manager, which should be, in this case, if the MPs are kept out, should be in this case appointed by the CEO of the CDF and should be loyal to the national government constituency development fund board, not the member of parliament. Let me say something. If you check at the way this CDF is being run at the constituency level, you will come to realize that to some extent the CDF managers are loyal to the members of parliament. So that, to an extent that if something happens, they cannot come out clear and say this and this happened, there were malpractices here, because they have fear of losing their jobs. Because the MP is now the boss, which in real sense constitutionally should not be that way. The boss to the constituency manager, his or her boss is the CEO of the National Government Constituency Development Fund. And that's where he or she should be reporting. And I think that it's on that basis that the court is now ruling that the MPs should not be touching that finances.
Well put in the matters of clarity between what they're supposed to do and what should be happening, and actually what should actually be their responsibility. And clarity is very much on point. Now, coming back to the members of the National Assembly, a few days before, actually, we actually saw in President William Ruto, we saw a motion among, and you've actually noted we have some new kids on the block, Yes. And we saw MPs shifting alliances, moving from one coalition to another, something that has been a matter of contention.
Yeah.
Now, looking at this factor currently within the current political arena of the day, is this something that has a malignant agenda, or is it just a normal power play in politics?
I think from where I sit, it's a normal power play in politics, and any elected person would wish to be on the side of the government, to influence development projects to his or her area of representation. I think that's adds to the reason as to why people are now moving from the other side into the government. Supposedly, Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga made it to the presidency. We could have had the other way of movement, just the same thing, the same way things are happening right now. So it's not something that is coming by shock. We expected, actually as Kenyans, we expected that, but unfortunately it happened so fast that we could not imagine. But it's going to happen, a lot are going to happen, many people are going to move, and it's a normal thing as far as development and being on the side of the government is concerned. Unfortunately, we might lose, we might not have the opposition in this government. So maybe things might be done in a way that probably people are not happy with, but no opposition can stand in.
Now, Babu, however much it is like that, my question is this: like on your perspective as a government expert, a governance expert, the shift that we are seeing among the political elite moving from one camp to the other, doesn't it put across an image of our politicians rather being more concerned on the rewards of the government as a force as it is, rather than the policies and the agendas that they had sold to the Kenyans who voted them into power? Is our political integrity that fickle?
Well, at that point, I would like to say that political integrity, as it stands right now, is an individual issue, but it's a big concern as far as leadership and governance are concerned. Because you will come to realize that people who are moving, actually those who have moved from the other side they were into the government section, some are former governors, some are former senators, some are newly elected MPs, some were governors and now they are senators. What they are trying to do is to protect their interest. And again, some are fearful that the things that they did while they were in power might be exposed, and the government probably might go after them. So that brings the biggest question on the table. Is our integrity being catered for, or is our integrity being taken for granted? Because literally looking at it from a layman's approach, you will come to realize that those who have escaped into the government side, majority of them had issues of corruption, some of them had issues of malpractices, some of them had issues of misappropriation of funds at their offices, at the offices that they held before. So the issue of integrity is a question, and it's appearing very conspicuously, and it should be a matter of concern, and it should worry many people. Yeah.
Well put, but I'm also going to bring this forward to you. Member of Parliament, senator, is elected into office, and they opt out of the seat that they were elected by the electorate and choose to stand on a different post, particularly maybe one as a cabinet secretary, or an appointment that has been made maybe by the government as it is. Now, doesn't the electorate feel cheated that whoever they voted to come and represent them has decided to shift into another angle, brother, and do something different, despite initially wanting to represent these people who voted them into office?
You know, when you look at the political scheme, the Kenyan political scheme, it can be, I mean, it becomes difficult to differentiate between personal interest and the people's interest, because you will come to realize that somebody, yes, it's good, you know, when you're appointed a minister or a cabinet secretary, it's an elevation to you as a person and to your community. But the biggest question should be, are you going to represent the interests of the people you intended to represent before getting that position? That's the biggest question that we should be asking ourselves. But again, you know, being appointed a cabinet secretary comes with a lot of responsibilities and a lot of considerations. And these are positions that to some extent we believe that are used to reward loyalists in the party. And therefore, it's not coming like a shocker. But again, once these guys are appointed, the sitting members are appointed, and then we have a by-election, probably they will propose or they will endorse or they will flaunt somebody who they feel can represent the interests of the people the way they intended to. And going forward, they might work hand in hand to ensure that they achieve whatever they plan to do. And that is an individual decision. The people cannot decide for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And looking at the coalitions that are more powerful, rather, in the various houses, we've seen contention for various posts. My question to you would be this. Now, as we see all this contention for various positions, whose main focal agenda is actually serving the common mwananchi, why should there be a contest while at the end of it all, whoever is seeking to be at this spot is actually going to serve mwananchi? Don't you think it's about time we had like a compromise of sorts, that we can agree this one will actually be held by this person, rather than have a contest that looks quite brutal actually as they seek these posts, yet the main purpose of that particular spot is actually serving mwananchi? What's your...
You're making it look funny. These positions and posts comes with a lot of remunerations, you understand? And then anybody, even a madman will always go for the biggest. So them contesting and pulling each other's neck for this position is not something that comes with a surprise. For instance, position of the speaker. Speaker is the third in command. In the absence of the president or the deputy president, it's the speaker. And if you're a speaker, you can imagine to what level your community is elevated. It's elevated, and you as a person, maybe your family, and the remuneration that it comes with it. So apart from just representation or performing the interest of the people, these guys consider their personal interest at stake. Something like no majority, it's an issue that is being discussed right now. Both coalitions, Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, are having contentious issues in the House to decide which side, who becomes leader of majority, who becomes the minority, and all sorts. This is because these people knows that these positions comes with a lot of kickbacks, remunerations, respect, and all, call it all. So everybody will want the best for himself. Mm-hmm. That's why you're having issues as far as this position is concerned. And again, just as I finish on that, it brings us back to the issue of integrity. And the biggest question is, why are you seeking elective position?
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeking elective position so that you can become a leader of majority? Are you seeking elective position so that you can become a speaker? Or are you seeking elective position so that you can become leader of minority? Why are you seeking elective position? And whatever it is that you want to do in that majority position, can you perform the same if you're not in that office? Yes or no? If you can do so, why can't you just relax and do that which you want to do, if not for personal interest?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's nothing that goes into the wananchi or in your constituency because you are a leader of majority. Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Babu, do you see, like even in the concluded general elections, there was the call that this time around, Kenyans behaved quite maturely. The politics was said to be somehow on an upper scale, considering its maturity and considering even the previous events that we've had when the political season was quite warm or rather hot. Now, looking at this, and right now among the answers that I've heard from you and your sentiments, I'm getting that we still have the tribal politics mindset. Like, do you visualize like maybe in 2027 per se, we'll have that transition smoothly from tribal politics, from my community politics, to national politics, where we're actually considering each other as Kenyans and not necessarily on the tribal backing?
Well, every sober Kenyan, anybody in this country who went to school, is exposed to, understands what it means to be alive, will wish that we move away from tribal politics and we get into politics of ideas, politics of development, growth, and politics of influence and impact, positive impacts. But again, it will take us long because there's this belief or notion that is going around that politics is local. When you say politics is local, what do you mean? It means that at every stage of election, each and every political leader will retreat back to his or her backyard to seek approval from the backyard. The moment he or she goes back there, what does it mean? He's going to consolidate his tribesmen. And if we continue in that direction, then it means we are not going to kick out politics of tribe as soon as possible. And it's an issue, it's a contagious issue, and it's cancerous. And I think going forward, we should just do away with it. Because it is because of this issue of politics of tribe that we are having complaints and fights here and there that it has been two tribes. So people are not viewing these things as leadership or as something that can bring growth, development, and stuff. People are viewing this thing as, is our person there? Have we ever had our person in that position? Are we going to have our person in that position? Those are the biggest questions that people are asking, and now not ideas and stuff. So we need to, as the young people coming up, I think in 2027, international politics, we need to embrace politics of ideas and politics of growth, politics of development. Let's compete in ideas, not tribes and stuff. And as I finish on that, I would like to echo something. If you checked at the campaign trails that were done before 2022 elections, to some extent, there is a coalition which I will not mention that was trying to forge or push for the politics of ideas. And there's another coalition which I will also mention too, that was was against that, because to some extent they have always survived on politics of tribe. So as Kenyans, we are hoping that the members of parliament that we have today, the young people who are influential, those who have the information like myself, we shall go back there in the villages, in the grassroots, and inform people that indeed for us to grow, we need to embrace politics of ideas, politics of development, politics of growth. Because today, the UNGA is up, and it's not the Kalenjins who are suffering, and it's not the Luos who are suffering, it's not the Kikus who are suffering. We are suffering as Kenyans. And today, we are having issue with fuel at 179 per liter. It is not the Kikuyu who are suffering, it's not the Luos or Kalenjins. We are having issues as Kenyans. So if you want to address economic issues or developmental issues, then we must keep away politics of tribe and start looking at politics of ideas for the purpose of this country and the positivity of growth.
Well taken, Ken Babu. You're taking safe strides, not mentioning any political camps, but I'll have to push you into this one. We have an official opposition, rather, because we have two factions, and in this political term, we have the Azimio One Kenya.
Yeah.
The coalition is part of the opposition. Now, we have seen a lot of contention, actually concerning even the leader of majority, with John Mbadi, the nominated MP, quite rather furious with the Wandai, Opiyo Wandai, being nominated to be the majority leader. Concerns that are rather threatening to split up this faction. Do you think we will survive with the opposition if this is not remedied?
First, we have to clear this issue of majority and minority in the parliament. Somebody said that they are still wondering up to now who are the majority and who are the minority. This thing, if you were to go in a coalition way, according to the Coalition Act, then Azimio carries the day as the majority coalition in the parliament. But again, if it doesn't go that way, like it was said that the speaker will decide, then UDA as a party has the majority, followed by ODM. And therefore, this will put ODM as the minority, if we go that way. Now, the issue of majority and minority is subject to the party to decide. So if the party settles on somebody, then even the Speaker of the National Assembly cannot dispute that. It is the party that decides person A is leader of majority, person B will be minority, chief whip and stuff. So if Opiyo Wandai and John Mbadi is having issues within the House, then it's upon the ODM party as a family to call for a meeting so that they can iron out their issues before the Speaker calls for a meeting and decides which side is the majority. And it's a minority finally. Yeah.
Thank you, Babu, for your time. I'm pressed for time. Unfortunately, my director is directing me that we are at a point where we have to take a break, and actually everything has been put out very clear. Oversight, legislation, and representation, the roles of the members of the Assembly, all who are in an induction process currently to be able to know everything that concerns their law-making duties in the National Assembly. We take a short break right here on KUTV Primetime News. We'll be back in a moment with more on the day's report.